Hello, hello, hello. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss the chapter 2, which handles about incident response, disaster recovery, and business continuity plans. Before starting this chapter, we'll be running through a common terms and definitions, which we'll be using under the chapter 2. The first term is adverse events. Adverse events is defined as events with negative consequence such as system crash, network packet floods, unauthorized usage of system privileges, defacement of the web page, or an execution of the malicious code that destroys a data. The next term we have is a breach, a loss of control, compromise, or unauthorized disclosure or unauthorized acquisition or any similar occurrence where a person other than an authorized user access or potentially access a personal identifiable information or an unauthorized user access PII for other than an unauthorized purpose, that is considered as breach. The next we have a business continuity. Business continuity refers to as an action or a process or a tools for ensuring an organization to continue a critical operation during a contingency. The next we have a business continuity plan, a documentation of the predefined set of instructions or procedures that describe how an or organization mission or a business process will be sustained during and after a significant disruption. The next we have business impact analysis, an analysis of an information system requirements, functions, and interdependencies used to characterize system continuously requirement and prioritize in the event of significant dispersion. The next we have a disaster recovery in information system terms and activities necessary to restore IT operations and the system services to an organization during and after an outrage, disturbance, or disruptions of any kind of or a scale. Then next we have a disaster recovery plan, a process or a policies or a procedures related to operating or preparing of recovery or a continuation of an organization's critical business functions, technology infrastructure, systems, and applications after an organization experiences a disaster. A disaster is when an organization's critical business functions cannot be performed at an acceptable level within an inter-operated period following the disruption. The next we have an event. So event is any observable occurrence in a network or a system is considered as event. Then we have exploit, a particular attack. It is named this way because an attacker can exploit system vulnerabilities. The next we have an incident that actually or potentially jeopardize the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of an information systems or an information the system process stores and the transmit. The next we have incident handling, the mitigation of violence of security policies and recommended practices is considered as incident handling. Consider incident response, a mitigation of violence of security policies and recommended practices. Then we have incident response plan, a documentation of the predetermined set of instructions or the procedures to detect, respond to, and limit consequence of a malicious cyber attack against an organizational information systems. Then we have induction, a security event or a combination of a security events that constitutes a security incident in which an induces gain or attempt to gain or access to the system or a system resources without an authorization. It is nothing but an actor penetrating into the system. The next we have Security Operations Center, a centralized organization function fulfilled by an information security team that monitors, detects, analyze events on the network or a system to prevent and resolve issues before they result in business disputations. The next we have a vulnerability. So weakness in the information system security procedures, internal control or implementation that could be exploited or triggered by a threat source. Then we have a 0-day, a previously unknown system vulnerability with potential of exploitation without a risk of detection or prevention because it doesn't in general fit recognized pattern signature or the method. In the short, 0-day vulnerability is defined before an organization or a information security analyst hackers identify those vulnerabilities and try to compromise the networks. Now let me quickly go through the topics involved under this particular chapter 2. Chapter 2, the overall summary is this chapter focus on mainly on the availability part of CAA tier and the importance of maintaining availability for business operations. Maintaining business operations during or after an incident, event, breach, inductions, exploit, or a 0-day is accomplished throughout the implementation of incident response, business continuity, or a disaster recovery plans. While these three plans may seem to overlap in scope, there are three distinct plans that are vital to the survival of any organization phasing out of ordinary operating conditions. There are primary things to remember from this chapter. So the first, the incident response plan responds to abnormal operation conditions to keep the business operating. The four main components of incident response are preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication and recovery, and post-incident activity. Incident response teams are typically a cross-functional group of individuals who represent the management, technical, and functional areas of responsibilities most directly impacted by a security incident. The team is trained on incident response and the organization incident response plan. When an incident occurs, the team is responsible for determining the amount and the scope of damage, whether any confidential information are compromised. So, implementing recovery procedures to restore security and recover from an incident related damage, supervising implementation of further measures to improve security and prevent recurrence of the incident. Second, a business continuity plan is designed to keep an organization operating through the crisis. Components of business continuity plan include detail about how and when to intact the plan and notify systems and call trees for altering the system team members and organizations associated with the plan has been impacted. In addition, it includes contact numbers for contacting critical third-party partners external emergency providers, vendors, and the customers. The plan provides a team with immediate response procedures and checklists and guidelines for management. Finally, if both an incident response and the business continuity plan fails, a disaster recovery plan is activated to return operations to normal as quickly as possible. And the disaster recovery plan may include the following components: executive summary, provide an high level overview of the plans, department specific plans, technical guides for IT system responsible for implementing and maintaining critical backup systems, full copies of the plan for critical disaster recovery team members, and the checklist for certain individuals. And these are the modules involved under this: incident response, incident business continuity, and disaster recovery. So under this, you can see there are domains: understand incident response 2.3, 2.3.1, 2.3.2, 2.3.3. And business continuity, we have 2.1, 2.1.1, 2.1.2, 2.1.3, and disaster recovery 2.2 to 2.2.3. So first we'll be discussing about business continuity, then disaster recovery, then third would be the incident response. Under this learning objective, after completing this chapter, the participants will be able to do explain how organization respond to, recover from, and continue to operate during an unplanned disruptions. Recall the terms and components of incident response. Summarize the components of business continuity plan. Identify the components of disaster recovery. Practice the terminology of and review business continuity, disaster recovery, and incident response concepts. And these are the terms or terminologies involved under this incident response. So the first we have a breach, then next we have an event, next is exploit, then incident, next intrusion, then the threat, then vulnerabilities, and next is a 0 day. So under this there are four main components of incident response. One will be the preparation phase, detection and analysis phase. Third phase is containment, eradication and recovery phase. The next is post-incident activities, and there are four possible models of incident response team, or I can say like IRT team. So IRT stands for incident response team. So under this, leveraged team, dedicated IRT team, and hybrid IRT team. The next module 2, understand business continuity or BC. Components of business continuity plan include list of BCP team members, including a multiple contact methods, and backup methods, and immediate response procedures and checklist. Example: security and the safety procedures, fire suppression procedures, notifications of appropriate emergency response agencies, and notification systems, and call trees for alerting personnel that the BCP is being enacted. Then guidance of management, including designations of authority for specific managers, how and when to enact the plan. Then contact members for critical members for a supply chain, vendors, customers, possible external emergency providers, and the third party partners, and how and when to enact the plan. Then contact numbers of critical members for a supply chain, vendors, customers, then possible external emergency providers and the third party partners. Then next we have understand a disaster recovery. So there are 5 possible components to include in the disaster recovery plan. Executive summary, providing an high level overview of the plan. department specific plans, technical guidance for IT personnel responsible for implementing and maintaining critical backup systems, then full copies of the plan for critical disaster recovery team members, checklist for certain individuals. Now, if you see the components of incident response, the first phase is a preparation. The next is detection and analysis phase. The next is containment, eradication, and the recovery phase. Then finally, the post activities phase. If you see this detection analysis phase and the contaminant eradication and recovery phase, they keep on happening simultaneously and one depends on another. Okay, it's like a cycle until they find out the core root cause of it. Then based on the post incident activities, then you will go for a preparation phase. Knowing the component of and the relationship to each other will help you to build and follow the incident response plan. So just to summarize overall this chapter 2, we'll be focusing more about incident response, disaster recovery, and finally the business continuity. I hope so this chapter will have a little weightage, but this is also important. So I hope so this chapter will give an overview about the three concepts. So catch up with you next chapter.